Hi, my name is Ralph Maltese, and for nearly 30 years I taught high school English. And today I want to pose the question, why English? What value does English have in a modern classroom? Now some might say, well, the kids need to know grammar. Please, it is not about grammar. Not to still charge the windmill, but we cannot define ourselves as educators by adhering to the notion that language is a static facility. To teach anything well is a challenge. But English teachers in high school have it more difficult than the other disciplines, I think. Part of it has to do with the clothing we wear. James Thurber once wrote a story called Clothes Make the Man. The plot involves a sort of nebbish, good-natured fellow who falls on hard times and finds himself with a pack of gangsters planning a bank robbery. His part in the heist is to dress as a policeman and divert traffic away from the bank so they can make a quick getaway. He shows up early in his police uniform and starts directing traffic. Within a few short minutes, he gets into the role, moving traffic along while his compatriots are robbing the bank. And our protagonist is giving directions to tourists, helping old ladies across the street, cautioning jaywalkers, so that when the robbers come out of the bank, he arrests them. Clothes make the man. Now, other departments in school have a style of dress that supports them as school authority figures. No one challenges an art teacher on how he or she dresses. My art teachers can show up in a clown outfit, even with big pointy shoes, and no one says anything. He's an art teacher. He must know something about color and fashion. The ones that get me the most are science teachers. They often wear lab coats, and just wearing those white lab coats gives them an edge. I mean, when you wear a lab coat with the big pockets and all, people think you know something. Years ago, I visited Lord & Taylor to buy my wife some perfume. And as I was looking at the choices, I was thinking about the novel Moby Dick and how years ago they used to make perfume in part from whales. And then this perfume salesperson comes up to me, and she is dressed in a sparkling white lab coat. Now, I know they wear them so they don't get cosmetics in their outfits, which makes me wonder why we'd want to put on our faces what we are afraid to fall on our clothing. But I cracked up inside. The lab coat she was wearing oozed authority. I imagined her yelling back to her co-workers, "Slaughter one whale! This customer wants some Chanel No. 5. But English teachers do not have uniforms. I think that we should be issued robes, like the dons at Oxford and the mitred hats. People will give us the respect we deserve. Or cloaks or capes or something. No kid will mess with us wearing these duds. Look at our literary hero Mark Twain in his Oxford raiments. So professorial." Now, I think clothing is a part of the problem. But it's not the whole solution. I mean, why English? Schools are emphasizing that all subjects should teach reading, that it should not be the sole domain of English teachers. All teachers should teach kids how to read a formula, or how to read an image, or a painting, or a video. And all content areas should teach writing. We teach students how to write a literary analysis, or a personal essay, or a formal essay. But in English, we do not teach students how to read a science book, or how to write up a lab report. So if all the other subjects take on their responsibilities to teach reading, writing, and critical thinking, as they should, what's left for us English teachers? Stories? Why English? How do we explain the worth of teaching Poe in the modern era, when there are so many other content things we expect students to learn? I think I have an answer to that question, and my answer falls into three general categories. The first involves the power of stories. Everything is a story. In order to process events and everything around us, the most familiar package is the story. It goes from time immemorial, from when they gathered around and told stories around the campfire. We go to a movie and we later tell our friends our story of what the movie was about. We make up stories about our past. While most of you are in your rooms listening to my story here, you're making up your own about the present. And we all conjure up stories about the potential future. The most well-known religious leaders and philosophers package their messages in stories. Scientists tell the story of the Big Bang. Businessmen present their story of the company to stockholders. At least the effective ones do. Everyone's life is a story, with a beginning, hopefully a long middle, predicated on a plot with adventures, humor, romance, and a denouement. For the lucky among us, the theme involves love. As teachers, we are often at our most effective when we dress our content within a frame of storytelling. So helping students develop an understanding of the importance of storytelling is essential. After all, historians take the millions of facts that occur during any given time period, from a day to a decade, and select those facts they want to use in telling their stories. The last 5 letters of history is story. The stories in our heads form our perceptions, and our perceptions often govern our behavior. Millions of people share the same culture, the same food, the same clothing, the same belief systems, the same love for the children, and they often try to hurt each other because of the stories in their heads. One of the English teacher's contributions is to help students understand the power of stories to shape our lives. Another reason why English is so important is the importance of myth and metaphor. We use the term myth not as in science to mean something that is not true. We use myth to refer to what Sam Keen says is the cultural DNA of a society. A myth may be true or untrue, but it guides a culture or subculture. For example, we showcase Honest Abe and Lincoln going from log cabin to the White House. One of our cultural myths is the notion that here in America we can be whatever we want to be. In fact, the conflict between the political right and the political left is in large part predicated on this myth. The right argues that you can be whatever you want to be, and government should just let us alone and allow us to fulfill our destiny. And the left argues that the playing field is not level, and government needs to intrude when it feels it has to level that playing field. Teaching English often involves having students examine those myths and how they shape our perspectives. English can teach students the power of myth, its presence and influence on modern society. Myth, along with metaphor, shapes our behavior. Because metaphors are powerful. The metaphors we use to describe ourselves, other people, and the environment dictate our perceptions of the world. Our behavior is dictated by our perceptions. For example, I could make the following observations. Last night, a blonde bombshell walked into my party. Last night, a college professor walked into my party. Last night, a technology guru walked into my party. Last night, an award-winning chef walked into my party. Of course, the blonde bombshell, the college professor, the technology guru, and the award-winning chef could all be the same person. Here's another example. A man walks into his favorite diner. The following people comment on the man's entrance. A young girl says, "Who's the hot hunk?" A policeman says, "The local bookie just arrived." A con man says, "Here's my mark." And the waitress says, "Here comes the BLT." I think the great power of Shakespeare, after all, is not only from his phraseology and his musings on the state of humankind. Why we still read and enjoy Will is because of his masterful use of metaphor, his comparisons of life to an actor on the stage, or to a brief candle, or to the sun. The metaphors we use to describe ourselves as teachers and to describe our students is extremely important. Are we, teachers, assembly line workers, stuffing students with information which they soon forget? Or are we creators of engaging lessons and projects that enable students to manipulate the information to solve problems? The third reason why I think English is important to teach in the modern era is because English is a connecting force. The best English teachers I've witnessed see their subject as a connecting force for all the other subjects. We often anticipate that students will make the transfer from something they learned in history or science to something they learned in math or English. I think we assume those transfers are made normally under great risk. English teachers, who often seem the most prone to visualize the big picture, can coordinate both the English skills and the big ideas generated from all the subjects. I once asked a geometry teacher, why teach geometry? He said, because the logic involved, is transferable to the other subjects. But kids don't automatically make that transfer unless we help them do that. Language arts should also be used as the connecting force for all the other disciplines. To connect the propaganda unit, students are studying in social studies, to the artist propaganda unit they are studying in art class, to the use of propaganda Napoleon uses in the novel Animal Farm, to connect naturalism and Darwinism, to naturalism and Marxist philosophy, to naturalism and literature in Stephen Crane's work. So there you have it. Why teaching English is an extremely important activity in the modern classroom. Studies in the past have demonstrated that liberal arts majors often make for the best problem solvers. If that is true, I suspect it is because liberal arts often include the big picture. Who we are as individuals and as conglomerates of individuals is in large part based on the stories going on in our heads, the metaphors we use to orient ourselves to the world, the myths we subscribe to, and the connections we make to other segments of the world outside ourselves. Thank you for listening.